The king's gambit arises from the first moves, pawn 4, pawn 5, and then you go forward with the move pawn to f4. Indeed, it's a bit of a risky opening because you're potentially exposing your kingdom this way, but hey, if you know what you're doing, it's much riskier for your opponent. Actually, in this video, we're going to be exploring games up to Master and Grandmaster level players, where black players with 2500 rating and 2700 rating lost in a very bad way. So, in the first example, we already have a black player rated 2500. Let's see what's going to happen here. After pawn takes f4, white plays knight to f3 to cover this square so that black can't deliver this check anymore. Black goes in the most principled way with pawn g5. This move kind of says, hey, you're never gonna get your pawn back, and secondly, black is ready to push here, pawn g4, to drive this knight away. After that, black can still deliver this nasty check, queen to h4. For that reason, a lot of players have even stopped playing the king's gambit at all. But there are ways for white to play this effectively, and I'm going to share them with you. The first line is actually my favorite. White just plays knight c3, and it sets an evil trap, even though it certainly doesn't look like a trap. It just looks like a normal developing move. Black says, hey, okay, I'm gonna play pawn g4, attack this knight. As the knight goes away, black can happily play queen h4 here, bringing the queen out, threatening the king. It looks like white is in big trouble. Definitely, white does not want to move the king forward, as that would just expose it. The king is stuck here, other pieces can't get out. So, king e2 would be bad, and pawn g3 looks equally bad because after pawn takes g3, white can't recapture because this rook will be lost in case white does recapture. If not, black is still going to deliver this check on the next move. It looks like white is about to resign, but here comes queen takes g4. You counterattack the queen, so black trades queens. You end up with an endgame where you're ahead in development, and everything's fine if black just trades queens here on g4. But black has something that seems a lot more powerful, like pawn g2, discovering a check to the king. Even though black temporarily sacrifices the queen, black is going to get their queen back and, along the way, win this rook on h1. In this variation, it seems like black has outsmarted white and ended up with an extra rook and a winning position. But there's one big catch here. After queen h5, there is no sufficient defense to this absolute threat, and for that reason, white actually wins. Even though you're a rook down. But again, since the previous moves of black are so natural and seem so powerful, you're highly likely to trap even high-rated opponents this way. What can black do now to stop this queen from coming to f7? Knight h6 doesn't really change things too much because after d4, you're ready to take this knight. And after that, you're still going to play queen takes f7, with support from your other knight on e5. Therefore, knight h6 doesn't really work. In this game, black played a smaller move. Again, black is a strong player. Black played bishop to e7, preparing this escape square for the king. Actually, if you just take here, the king escapes and there's no continuation of white's attack. In fact, black is going to win thanks to their extra rook. So, queen takes f7 doesn't work, but instead, knight takes f7 still wins here. Black responded knight f6, hoping to drive away this queen and then capture the knight to just win. But here comes knight d6, discovered check and a double check. Therefore, the king definitely has to move. It can't go here because of queen f7 checkmate. So, in the game, black played king d8, maybe hoping for a perpetual check after knight takes f7, but all of a sudden, the queen came to e8. It's a great life story. The queen was sacrificed for herself for the sake of the attack. After knight takes f7, white is winning. It's an absolutely brutal variation. And again, it can work even against advanced level opponents. Now, let's come back and enjoy white's next trap. The next variation is also a lot of fun. Still here, black goes for the main line, pawn takes f4. And after knight goes to f3, black plays pawn g5. White goes bishop c4. It's actually an old line, it's been played by famous masters of the past, such as Morphy. But it's still a deadly opening weapon. What I really love about this is how white stays cool no matter what black does. So here, after black goes pawn g4, attacking this knight, white says, okay, you won the knight? No problem, you may take it. White castles, giving up the knight. Black takes the knight, and again. White keeps playing as if nothing happened, just knight c3, developing the knight, saying, okay, you want to destroy my castle? Go for it. Most played move by black here is pawn takes g2 because it looks super good for black, why not? But after this, guess what? It's actually a losing mistake. Again, very difficult for black to see because here, instead of recapturing or playing rook to f4, white has something else in mind. you're going to play bishop takes f7. By this point, you're already way ahead in development, and black is completely underdeveloped. For that reason, you can just rush into the attack and checkmate black before they've got a chance to figure out what's going on. So, bishop takes f7 calls the king out, and after that, rook takes f4. Now, we're not just recapturing the pawn, but we're also combining it with a deadly attack. What can black do? If the king goes somewhere here, you can always bring your queen out, and it's going to be checkmate on the next move. It's a linear checkmate, pretty nice, so the king can't easily escape. Let's come back here. Definitely, it's more natural for black to play knight f6, but that doesn't help either because of pawn e5. Due to the pin, the knight can't move, and you're going to capture it anyway. Black is lost. Black played bishop e7, and instead of taking the knight right away, white played an even stronger option. Queen h5 check. White uses the pin, so the knight can't move, and because of this check, the king has to go. The king went back to f8. White captured on f6. And recapturing back is deadly for black. White can probably go knight d5 and just win the bishop if black does that. Black played bishop d6, hoping to at least gain a tempo for the attack, but that didn't really help. Queen h6 check. White just simply goes for the checkmate. King to e8, and now after pawn f7, king to e7, there's a nice checkmate by the knight, knight to d5. Again, it's really cool how white was completely non-reactive. Whatever black does, white says, okay, you want the knight? Take it. You want to destroy my castle? Do it. I have no problem with that. And then all of a sudden, you checkmate black. Often, your opponents will opt to play the king's gambit declined if they don't feel comfortable going into the main lines because they're sharp and complicated. Black may simply defend their pawn by playing something like pawn d6 or knight to c6. In fact, knight to c6 is the second most played move by black in this position. You just play knight f3, renewing your threat to the pawn. Black defends it, and then you play bishop c4. In this game we're analyzing, black had a rating of 2400. And you can see how bad it went for black. After knight f6 and pawn d3, lots of your opponents, the majority of them, will play bishop g4. It looks advantageous for black at first, but in fact, it actually backfires. Let's see how. You just castle. Black plays bishop e7 and knight c3. So far, all the standard moves. By the way, this bishop is never a problem for you because you can always just play h3, forcing the exchange, which is favorable for you. Black will very often play knight d4, and there it is, trying to somehow take advantage of this pin and start attacking you. But it backfires because after pawn takes e5 and pawn recaptures, you've got a very beautiful combo starting with bishop takes f7. It's not even a sacrifice because after king takes, you've got knight takes e5 check to the king. And it's a fork to the bishop. For that reason, when the king goes away, it's knight takes g4. You've managed to win this pawn on f7 and completely expose black's king. Guess what black usually does here? It's knight takes g4 because black hopes to gain a pawn back after knight takes c2 and indeed gain their pawn back. But now it fails to 26, checkmate in 1. Really nice. Thanks for watching the video till the end. Like the video if you liked it. Stay tuned by subscribing.